3-time Olympian, 9-time NCAA champion, and her new book, Fast Girl, came out not long ago. Please give it up for Suzy Faber Hamilton. Hey, Suzy. Test, test. You get your own microphone. Look at that.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Good. I'm a little slow because I ran the half today.
You ran the half? What the heck? You're a 1,500-meter person. What are you doing?
I know my back hurts, but you should probably train before you do that.
Get this thing a little closer to you.
You should probably train a little bit before you go out and run a half.
That's not good.
I did not train. I literally have run in the last 3 months, once a week, no more than 3 miles.
Perfect. You were ready. You were tapered.
Yeah, but I still ran 151, but that's because of yoga and bar.
Like that.
That's the only thing that got me.
So when did you start running? You were real young, right?
I was in 5th grade.
And what was it?
Just beating all the people, the boys. And,
Yeah.
But it was more, it just mentally made me feel really good.
Yeah.
And I would pretend I was a horse.
When
I
you
would
ran?
run the nature trails by my house and just be a horse galloping. And
you just
everything
love the feeling.
Yeah, everything in your mind just went numb. And it was just feeling this effort. It was effortless.
Right.
To just run.
From the outside, if people looked at your family, they probably would have thought you guys were the Bradys,
the Brady Bunch.
The Brady Bunch, or
Yeah.
the Cleavers. Everything seemed fine.
Right, small Midwest town where everything looked perfect.
Wisconsin.
On the outset. Yeah.
But what was going on inside?
Well, my brother was diagnosed pretty young with bipolar disorder, and it really surfaced. There was a big traumatic event in his life. His girlfriend passed away in high school, and she had a very rare illness that took her life. But that's when it surfaced for him,
Yeah.
and it was really bad. I mean, there were things that I saw as a child that most people wouldn't see. And as a little girl, I see my brother passed out on the floor and a vodka bottle empty, and he had a shotgun in his arm, and he's completely passed out. And I remember as a child thinking, why can't he just be normal? Why can't he be a good brother? As a kid, I just thought he was a troublemaker. He had this behavior that was so bad, and just snap out of it. Why can't he be good? But now in hindsight, I knew he was manic depressive, is what they called it back then. I knew he had this, but it didn't connect that his mind had a chemical imbalance and his mind was causing this behavior. This wasn't a choice. And I don't think a lot of people understand that in bipolar.
Right.
Yeah.
And how did your parents deal with it with the rest of the family?
Well, my parents, amazing, loving parents. They loved me and my 2 sisters and my brother. They loved us so much that they thought by not talking about it and shielding us was the best thing. And in hindsight, obviously, communicating about our problems, talking about difficult issues are important to be able to have a healthy, happy life. If you shield somebody from the destruction or bad behaviors, you're only causing more harm.
So as you're running, you became fairly legendary in the state of Wisconsin. How many colleges were recruiting you out of high school?
It was pretty much everybody. And I remember this is just so bizarre because growing up in Wisconsin in this tiny town, college wasn't talked about. It wasn't.
Really? It wasn't a natural, like you go right from high school to college?
No, it wasn't like, oh, what college are you going to? A lot of kids didn't go to college.
Right.
So I'm getting letters from Harvard. I knew of Harvard, but I didn't quite understand how big Harvard was. I just knew they weren't going to give me a full scholarship, so that was out of the question. But I got like a full scholarship to Stanford. I'm like, what's Stanford? I didn't
know.
Didn't even know because I was so sheltered in my life that I chose Wisconsin because they had just. Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Graduated before me.
Yeah.
Except that they really like beer and brats and Badger football. And what's wrong with that, right? But I hate brats and beer. But
When you were running in high school, you were pretty dominant in high school. Did you ever lose?
No. No.
No.
But that was kind of the catalyst to a lot of my problems. Was my freshman year I won state, and in high school, all of a sudden, with my brother's behavior, I felt if I win, oh my gosh, I can see how happy my parents are. I can see the community praising my parents on, oh, your precious daughter, she did so great, we're so proud. So it was bringing this joy to my parents. So I was believing, okay, I just got to keep winning. It will take the pain away from the family, make my parents happy.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure.
Did you have any running heroes growing up?
I did. Mary Decker Slaney, I saw run in the '84 trials because of your pictures. We, as juniors, we were invited to run at the trials, which was pretty cool.
At the LA Coliseum.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I remember taking a picture of her because we were in the front row we competed, then we could see all the professionals run. And I remember taking a picture of Mary, and she didn't look at me, or, I'm like, Mary, can I have your autograph? And she turned around and then just kept walking.
Yeah.
And I think she had just lost by Ruth Wysocki, beat her.
It knocked her off.
Yeah, but I was like, whoa, I'm never going to be like that. When I become an Olympian, I'm never going to walk away from some young kid. But now in hindsight, I look back, I'm like, she was distraught. She was, she never lost.
Yeah, it's like the only time she ever lost.
Yeah.
What's interesting is you look back at a Ruth Wysocki who never lost out here in California, and then you look at Mary who never lost in her career. Back then, for women, you sort of dominated, right? And guys sort of grow up a lot of times back then getting beat fairly often. There's somebody who's better. I remember.
That's true.
And for a lot of times for you guys in Wisconsin, you never lost.
Right.
And for someone like Mary in California, she never lost. And then all of a sudden you start racing on an international level, and it's very difficult when you realize you're not going to win every race.
Right, and then you come in 8th, but you've just run the fastest time in the world.
Right.
But you're 8th you come back to your hometown, and why the hell did you get 8th place? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But yet you just ran your fastest time. But in their mind, it's all about place. And so it starts to eat away at your self-esteem and your self-confidence that maybe I'm not good enough.
When you're at Wisconsin, your coach, Peter Teagan, what did he bring to the table for you? Because he was a major influence in your life.
Yeah, freshman year, he was this father figure. And I think a lot of times for young women, when they go off to college, the coach becomes this father figure. He was God. Whatever he said, I did. I respected 100%. I became the perfect coachable athlete. Whatever he said, I did it. I think I also, looking back on college, I didn't have perspective. It was all running. My whole world was all running, nothing else.
Nothing else at all?
No, I didn't even care about my education because I was just going to become an Olympian and run. So why do I even need an education? And the thing is, I think because of the education, I had a learning disability early in high school. So I just kind of associated that, well, when I go to college, I'm just going to run. But if I would have been diagnosed early on, I have ADHD, I could have been a great student. And it's only been a year that I've been taking this medication for it, that for the first time in my life, I can learn, I can read books.
Now?
I could never.
Only a year?
Only a year ago, and I'm 47 right now. So it's kind
never
of,
too late.
It is never too late. But I did make it through college and high school because I had, in hindsight, they weren't good, but looking back at that time, it was great because I could get a D on an exam in college and magically pass with a B. How did that magically happen?
Because you're running fast.
Exactly. Nobody wanted to be the professor that ruined Suzy's career. That was my whole life like that. High school, same
People were taking
thing.
care of you.
Everybody took care of me. Let's help Suzy get through her life. I mean, from my father to my coach to my professors. And it seemed like it was more men than women that took on this role of caring, protecting, in some ways controlling me, is how I felt.
Did you resent it?
I didn't resent it, but it all kind of did a circle later on in my life when things got out of control. I realized one of the reasons was because of this control that I felt that men had over me.
Gotcha. So one thing I love about Peter Teagan in terms of his the way he trained people. I mean, Mary was always that person who just went off the front. Nobody ever came closer.
Right.
But it sounded like you guys almost did roller derby type training where you were in scrums and it was like one of the girls would be behind the other girls and have to go through the whole group. And he taught tactics. He taught you guys to be tough in races so that you didn't necessarily have to be the fastest that day, but you had to be the smartest.
Yeah, no, in triathlons, it's not so much like that you're fighting off people.
Greg Billington
right?
will disagree with that.
Is it?
It is for the draft legal, but the non-drafting,
yeah. I don't know where he went.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, totally. For him, he's
Yes.
going to have that.
Right, with the draft legal. But the non-drafting, you're right. It's basically you against the course.
But he was preparing us for European circuit. So literally, we would have to elbow each other hard enough to.
Yeah.
And you learned how to elbow somebody in a race. If they were taller, you would just elbow them right in the boob, or or in the side. You got really good at. So I had this dirty side to me that could be really
I read about that, yeah.
But yet on the outside, she's like perfect and she's so sweet.
She's that mean
She
Barbie
can't
doll.
yeah, she would never do that. So if I became a good actress at it too.
Yeah.
Like especially when it came to trying to trip somebody. Not that I tried, but sometimes your spike would hit the person in front of you, maybe a couple times.
A little accidental.
Yeah. And not to be mean, but they were doing it back. So. And it's rough. And so I don't know what I was going to say. But anyways.
I think you're set up to do mass start swims in triathlon.
Yeah,
I think you've done all the training you need for that. So first woman to win the same NCAA championship 4 years in a row when you won the 1500, 4 years in a row. You win 9 NCAA championships in a span of 51 races. You win 49 times. I mean, that's sort of dominating.
Yeah, that was dominating.
How hard was it to go from that to racing internationally, where it was obviously different, and in knowing now that some of those people might not have been clean that you're racing? Did you have a sense of, okay, I'm dominating here in the U.S. and I'm going overseas and I'm getting my clock clean sometimes?
It was really hard because, wait a minute, why am I so good here, but I go over to Europe and basically I feel like I suck, even though I didn't.
Your times are still good.
Yeah, my times are still good, but I'm not winning. And it was very early on that I learned about drugs. I remember as a junior, I got to compete over in Romania and Yugoslavia, all these, really interesting places.
Yeah.
And in Romania, I remember I was beat by at least 50 yards in the 1500. And that's hard.
That's a long way.
And here I am ranked number 1 in the U.S. And these are little tiny girls, and I was tiny, but they were just like little kids. And that was kind of the first inkling of me finding out that the government supports the drug use of these young kids.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know. I mean, maybe these kids didn't even know they were being given.
Right.
It's just a vitamin, probably was told to them. But yeah, that was the first inkling, and could not believe it. But yet that you saw where they were living and the conditions.
And what it meant to win a race like that. It changed their life. And not just their life, but the life of their family.
Families, grandparents, it supported everybody.
What was that first Olympic experience like in '92?
The opening ceremonies was unbelievable. So, not to put pressure, because you're going to do whatever you do to, whether you make it or you don't make it, everybody here loves you, so it doesn't matter.
There you go.
But if you do make it, the opening ceremonies is something you can't not do, because it's just, you've worked so hard to get there, and now you're walking in the stadium and you're representing your country, and everybody's cheering, and everybody wishes they could be there walking that track. It was cool because I got to meet the dream team, and I got to be kissed by Magic Johnson, and Kristen Leitner recognized me. It was really cool. But the race itself, that sucked because mentally I was not capable of being prepared And like I said, I wasn't capable.
Right. You weren't ready yet.
Yeah.
You were young.
Yeah, I was young.
Yeah. You get to the You got to the semis and like 11th or in the quarters.
Yeah, my first Olympic team, I didn't even make it out of the first round.
Quarters. Okay.
Yeah.
But what's cool is first woman to break 2 minutes for 800 meters in college.
That was in college.
Yeah, in college. What I love is the fact that they changed the name of the Big Ten Female Athlete of the Year award because you won that event so many times. They
Right.
changed it to the Suzy Favor Big
Right.
Ten Female Athlete of the Year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they took it away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that, I mean, to have an award, and that's not
But it
just for
was
running.
Still, yeah. Really
That's a female
cool.
collegiate athlete of the year. Big Ten.
Right, because it was the Jesse Owens Award.
Yes.
So, I mean, that was really
Jesse
a
Owens for the
really
men, yeah.
cool honor. But yet, because of my actions, which I never hurt anybody, I was never intending on hurting. I
Right.
didn't kill anybody. I wasn't, abusing a spouse like you see other athletes and who still hold awards. Mine was taken away. I understand at the time.
Right.
But that's a whole nother story
Yeah.
how it was taken away was what really hurt me. It wasn't so much that they took it away, it was how it was handled.
Did they call you?
My husband had, after everything came out with my escorting, they had called my husband, the commissioner, or he
Right.
sent an email saying, we're going to take this award away. We're just letting you know.
We're going to rename it.
Yeah. And my husband wrote back saying, no, we totally understand, but I just want you to know, could you maybe hold off on it? My wife has been diagnosed with a mental illness. We're still trying to figure all this out. And he sent a very long email, and the commissioner, who was a friend, just replied, good luck.
Nothing.
That's it. It was just good luck. There was no, I hope she gets better. I hope she finds, the right drugs, the right counseling, whatever, to figure out why she got to this place. So it's like a jab of let's hurt her when she's down. Let's hurt her even more. And it's also the stigma around mental illness. He's just adding to it. He's just helping that stigma stay there. And that's what was so disappointing.
If he had had a conversation.
Just have a conversation with
Yeah.
me, and I understand the pressure that he was getting. I'm sure he was getting emails and
Right.
letters saying, oh, I don't want my daughter to get that award with that person's name on it, who we label as a slut. I don't want her,
Right.
So I understand that, but I also don't accept the way it was handled.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally understand.
Yeah.
So there was a point there where you're negotiating between Reebok and Nike.
Right.
Reebok was a new guy. Nike's the established guy. And as the story goes, Phil Knight, the owner of Nike, was very excited because Suzy was about to sign with Nike. And a good friend of ours actually was negotiating that deal. And then they had the sun-kissed indoor games in L.A. And Phil Knight's watching on television, and Suzy Favor comes trotting out on the track in Reebok, head to toe. And he wasn't very happy. And the guy who actually was doing that negotiations used to have this really nice corner office up at Nike. And the next time we visited him, he had this really nice cubicle that things had changed a little bit.
Yeah,
But that was
unfortunate.
a big battle, right, for you?
It was, and I think they thought, oh, she's a girl, she's going to love the pink shoes, we'll just sell her on the clothes. And, Nike's so popular that we'll sell her on that,
Yeah.
and of course she'll sign. But Reebok then came back, and they were very honest. They said, we know our shoes aren't what Nike shoes are right now, but we're working on it. We need somebody like you so we can help to get the shoes to a higher standard.
Right. And you're getting some profit sharing.
Right,
You're
profit sharing
part of
in
the company.
We're going to give you a commercial right off the bat. We're going to really help to make your career take off beyond running.
And you'll help in the design of the clothing.
Exactly. So it's really like it showed that I wasn't just going to be an athlete. They
Right.
really cared as me as a person, and they were looking at me more in other ways to help the company than just as a runner.
So all of a sudden you're doing some modeling, and you're liking that, right?
Mhm. Oh my God, it was so much fun. It was so easy. All you have to do is strike a pose and smile, strike a pose. I train so hard every day, and all you have to do is
Stand here?
Stand here, and yeah.
People pay me?
Yeah.
And it's good dollars?
It was easy, yeah.
At the same time, you're competing against some of the other top women who we've seen it with an Anna Kournikova, right? Obviously a very good tennis player who got to a lot of championships and lost.
Yep.
You're a very good runner, made 3 Olympic teams. Was there resentment from the other athletes you were racing against?
There was, yeah. They're like, some of the other runners were saying, well, why does she get all the attention? And this was even before I became an Olympian. They're
Right.
like, why is she even on Olympian magazine? She's not even an Olympian yet.
Right.
And she's just a pretty face. She isn't, running fast enough to deserve that.
Yes.
So there, I heard these whispers, and I realized, oh my God, I have to just focus on my running. As much as I love having this other life where I got to model and I got to just do normal fun things, I realized I couldn't do that. I had to just train and devote my life to training. In hindsight, I wish I would have had a voice and just said, you know what? I like this life. This is important to me.
Yeah.
Too.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
But I'm hearing what everybody else is saying around me and thinking, oh, I guess I have to do that. And, not speaking up to what I really wanted.
We've seen that in the sport of triathlon. There used to be a guy, I don't know if people remember, named Chucky V back in the day, and he had a mohawk. And he got a lot of press because he had this mohawk. He was a triathlon guy living in his car who had a mohawk. He ended up getting a Gatorade sponsorship and Gatorade commercial. And he finished, I think he finished 11th in Kona one year. So obviously a very legitimate guy. He never won anything. And he felt that he didn't deserve what he was getting sponsorship-wise because the other athletes were like, well, we're doing better than him. Why aren't we getting Gatorade? So it's something that can be really hurtful.
Right, but yet he had this uniqueness to
He was
them
still
that
good.
people loved, and he was good. I respect that.
Exactly.
And if somebody's willing to pay it, just like these big, professional basketball players or hockey,
Yes.
if somebody's willing to pay it, well, of course you're going to take it. What, you're going to say, no, I think I should have like 75 million less, or I don't know, whatever.
Right. Yeah, we saw that we had
10 million less.
We had 2 top female triathletes, Paul Newby-Fraser, 8-time Ironman world champion, and Erin Baker from New Zealand. And 2 of them at one point were number 1 and 2 in the world. Paula made a lot more money than Erin did. And I remember having Paula's agent on the show and asking him, I said, Paula and Erin are both very good athletes. Paula does a lot better with endorsements. Is that fair, considering that Erin is almost as good an athlete? And he goes, as a pro athlete, the only thing you're really entitled to is a prize money that comes with the race. Anything else that you get is because of your looks, your personality, nowadays your social media following, and you shouldn't feel guilty about that type of thing. So talk a little bit about your second Olympic experience, 96.
Second Olympics, it was in Atlanta, and I was working with a coach in Eugene, Oregon, actually Mary Slaney's old coach.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, he was, again, one of these figures in my life that became very controlling. He was a little obsessive controlling about what I did in my personal life to my training life. And so the connection wasn't good with the coach and I actually ran the 800, which wasn't my better event.
I wondered about that because you ran 1,500 all the time, and then 800 in 96.
Yeah, he felt that I should double at that Olympics. And to double, it's really difficult to be a half miler and a miler in the Olympics. That's 5-6 events in a matter of what, maybe
a couple days, right?
8 days.
Yeah.
But to run your fastest every time, it's virtually impossible unless you're on drugs. And so I only made the 800, and the mile 15 was my better event. So when we're talking about your career, is there one race that stands out as your favorite, as the best day that Suzy Faber-Hamilton ever had on the track? I think the best day was would be when I ran in 2000. I just run the fastest time in the world, and it was in Oslo, Norway.
Yeah.
And I'm Norwegian, so it was like I'm amongst all my relatives. It just felt so good to have run this time so fast. And sometimes when we go our fastest time ever, it feels so effortless. And that's how that day felt. It just, everything came together. And my Russian friend I remember her hugging me after the race, Svetlana Masterkova. Do you remember that name?
Do.
She was the 2-time Olympian, gold medalist in the 96 Olympics. Yeah. So it was neat.
So you're heading into 2000, into Sydney, and obviously best shape of your life, and your brother commits suicide.
The year before.
The year before, 99.
Yep. Dan had
And
died.
did you as a family deal with that, or because you were in the midst of getting ready for the Olympics, did you just, okay, it's time to move on?
My family was dealing with it. I wasn't dealing with it. So I remember after the funeral, after Dan had died, I went to the funeral and the reception, but during the reception, I actually left. I told my parents, I have to leave. I'm flying to Ireland
Right.
That morning. So it was easy for me my entire life to escape all my problems. And those problems don't just leave you, they start to layer up in your brain. But for me to not deal with my brother's death, I'll just go train,
Yeah.
and I'll get the heck out of here, and I'll go to Ireland, and my doctor, my physio will make me better. But like I said, I didn't deal with it. It was just another layer being stored up here. Gonna
So-
explode someday.
So you go to the Olympics in 2000.
I was injured. I strained my hamstring really bad, and this was about 6 weeks before the Olympics. So my training went downhill pretty quickly, and my self-esteem went down, my confidence because of the injury. I didn't know it, but I had an avulsion fracture on my ischium.
What the heck is an ischium?
It's the bone right in your butt, like right. You need the donuts to sit on.
Yep.
It's like that really bony thing in your butt, and that was what was fractured because the strain was so tight it kept yanking. The tendon yanked on the ischium.
So you still ran well. Obviously, you had the second fastest qualifying going into the finals.
Yeah.
This is going to be your first finals at 1,500 meters.
First race, I remember it was okay, but I felt tired, so I thought, okay, I just need to get the kinks out. Second race, I think
Second fastest, yeah.
I was terrified because it was so difficult. It felt so hard.
Yeah.
And I knew I was in big trouble for the final. After that second race, it was supposed to be easy, and it was one of the hardest races I've ever run.
And then you get to the finals.
I didn't want to be at the finals.
You didn't want to be?
No. After that second round, this was the last place in the world I wanted to be, was at the Olympics.
Really?
And
Why?
because I knew I wasn't going to win, and winning was the only place in my mind that was very warped. Winning was the only thing.
So just a medal wasn't good enough?
I mean, I would take a bronze or a silver. I know in hindsight, and during that time, yeah, I would have taken, and that would have been better. But I needed to win that medal to honor my brother, to honor the state of Wisconsin, to honor, the track world.
You're representing the U.S. It sounds like you put the whole world on your shoulders.
I did. Like, I felt like everybody was watching me in the entire world. That's how warped my brain was, that everybody wanted Suzy to win the gold medal, where, people didn't even know who I was or didn't even care. But in my
in your
mind,
mind, everybody was watching.
So, yeah. So that when I didn't win, my world was crushed. It was over. I didn't know that one race would begin the spiral down of my life, of how could one race all of a sudden change my
everything.
world that was ahead of me. Would never have guessed.
You're leading into the last lap.
Leading 200 meters to go, I hear the runners on me. Like, I have eyes in the back of my head. You can see them.
But you don't look back.
No, you don't look back.
No,
but
ever.
you feel them and you sense them, and their breath is close. And I knew I'm toast. I just knew it because I didn't have anything left in me. So I hung on. For some reason, I could hang on a little longer. And then with 75 meters to go, they slowly passed me one by one.
Yeah.
And instead of, like most people with, logic in their brain, they would say, okay, it's okay. I didn't get the medal. Let's try and get fifth at least. But no, I couldn't just settle for fifth, because then sixth passes me and everybody's passing me. So the way out, I figured it happened very quickly. I said, just fall on purpose, because that will become the excuse why you didn't win. You can say you tripped or something, or somebody tripped you. Something happened, that's why you fell on purpose and you didn't win. So it wouldn't be blaming me like, oh, she's screwed up, she's a mental case. I can come up with better words too, but instead, I fell on purpose. I hit the ground. I told myself I was the biggest idiot in the world, that I just blew it.
Yeah.
My brain is what was so off, so off, that caused me to even go to a dark place like that, to fall on purpose. But when I tell that story, I've had so many athletes, runners, tell me that they've done the same thing.
Really?
Yeah. But theirs wasn't as dramatic.
It wasn't the Olympic finals.
Yeah, because I was, and mine, I have to do everything so dramatically. I can't just fall, it has to be, whoa, big deal, creating all this attention. So,
how long was it before, was it when you were interviewed afterwards? Did you admit it, or was it a while before you admitted it? When I fell, I got up and I basically, jogged to the finish. And when the press, I could see him in the tunnel. When I saw the press, I couldn't face the fact of having to talk to the media. Right.
So I fell again.
In the tunnel?
Right before the tunnel, on the track. I just kind of collapsed, and it wasn't a total, oh, Suzy, everything's fine, just fall. It was, everything was spinning. I was hyperventilating. I was having a big anxiety attack.
Right.
Huge. So to fall again it just was easy, because I needed to escape. And when you close your eyes and you fall, everything's gone around you. You don't have to deal with anything.
Did you think there was something inside that you just wanted to get away from the attention? You didn't want the world to be looking at you anymore?
At that point, yeah. I wanted to win the gold. I was ready for the attention. I was ready to stand on that podium. And, I had so many dreams of standing on that podium with the gold medal, and you're singing the national anthem, what that would be like.
Yeah.
It's almost like I fantasized about that too much, almost every day, daily, that I think I became so obsessed that was the only thing.
Did you, after 2000, did you immediately start thinking, okay, Athens, 2004, get ready for next Olympics, or did you feel that time was running out?
The thing was, with Sydney, I wanted that gold or bronze or silver so bad so I could retire.
Right.
I wanted to retire so bad, but I never felt, I wanted to retire 4 years before the 2000 Olympics, but I never felt I could speak up, because I never grew up with a voice, so I could never just say, well, no, I don't want to do that. I didn't have that option,
right.
I felt. So not making the team, making another team was something I truly didn't want to do. And when it came time to train for my next Olympics, I just went along with what everybody wanted. They wanted me to try and get another gold. And I wanted to say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of this.
Right.
But if I said that to somebody, because I told my husband, I'm like, I wish I could have told you that. But if I would have, I already knew what you were going to say. You would have said, Suzy, you can't do that. You're throwing this talent away. You've been given this, God had given you this gift to run fast. You can't just throw it away. And I knew he would say that. And he's like, yeah, I would have told you that. And everybody would have told me that.
Right.
My coach, Nike. So I was stuck. I was stuck having to train to do this again.
When did you hang him up?
After I got injured. That same injury happened during the trials in Sacramento in the 2004.
Yeah.
And so that's
time.
I actually could have run the final, but I didn't want Sydney to repeat itself. I didn't want the anxiety to cause me to have to fall again on purpose.
Right.
So I had the mental sense to know, don't put yourself in that situation, because there's a good chance it's going to happen.
So then
I didn't make the team, even though they told me I made the team.
Really?
Yeah, because I had the standard. This coach, she was the Penn State coach at the time. She told me, oh no, you're on the team. And she took me through processing. I got processed with my uniform and everything. And she's like, yep, you made the team. Congratulations. Everybody's congratulating me. So I'm like, okay, this turned out to really work out. And we're driving home back to LA. And an hour from LA, the lady calls me, oh, I'm so sorry. We made a really bad mistake. You didn't make the Olympic team. And so for 3 hours, you think you're made another team, and then they take that away from you. It was devastating. I couldn't believe it. That was it. I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. And I thank God it all happened that way, that I didn't make the team, because I then got pregnant
Right.
and had my daughter, which has been the best gift in my entire life. You know, I would sacrifice, I would give up everything in my whole life just for her.
For Kylie.
Yeah, for Kylie.
So after you have Kylie, that's when things really started going in terms of postpartum depression, and
Right.
then
They thought it was postpartum depression, and I knew it was something different.
Yeah.
I knew this just is different than depression.
it was bipolar, but it wasn't recognized.
I had bipolar at that time, and they even have studies now that childbirth can bring on bipolar. That's maybe it's there.
Oh, it's sort of latent, and then all of a sudden it comes up.
Yep, and they have research that does, it could be the combination. I was then diagnosed as having depression, and I was misdiagnosed and given a drug. And Zoloft is a great drug. That was the drug I was given, and it's a great drug for many people.
Yeah.
But in my case, they didn't know I was bipolar. And many times, not everybody, I have to make sure to emphasize that, it can bring on bipolar, and Zoloft can bring on hypersexuality.
Yep.
It can bring out a manic state. And the Zoloft definitely had a huge effect on me. It was very quick. All of a sudden, no inhibitions, enormous amounts of energy, talking a mile a minute. I could take on anything. It was this like crazy person who was starting to come out. And I felt great. I'm like, here I was feeling awful, and
Right.
then now I'm feeling elated.
I remember talking to Mark, and Mark said that, you know, they diagnosed her with depression, and they gave her Zoloft, and all of a sudden depression was gone, but it sort of went a little bit off the charts.
Right.
Next thing, it's, hey, let's go to Vegas and have a threesome,
And jump off an
let's
airplane.
go skydiving,
Right.
and
No inhibitions whatsoever, none. I had none. And I mean, you know, one thing looking back which was crazy, in Vegas, they had the stiletto race
Yes.
for rock and roll.
For rock and roll, yep.
And they had asked if I wanted to do it, and my husband's like, Suzy, you're injured. You should not be doing this.
Running in high heels, that's good with an
and
injury.
you have an
Yeah.
injury, you have a calf injury. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm running this. I'm feeling great. Come on. And so I get to the race, and I see there's all these B actresses.
Right.
Not to make
Yeah, yeah.
but that's what they are, B actresses, that they do kind of these movies,
Yes.
and you would recognize them. And I'm like, wow, and they all have these cute skirts on, and they're all looking really cool, and I'm like, well, I can show them. And so out of nowhere, and I would never do this, but out of nowhere, I pull my shirt off, and I'm in this sparkly bra, and I'm like, I'm going to show them. And I run, and I win the race, and you know, I look at pictures now of that, and I'm like, who was that person? It's just bizarre. It was a completely different person.
So you go from that, and then it's spiraling, right? You're going to Vegas. You become an escort,
Right.
and
And it wasn't just like overnight how this, it was
Evolved.
a 6-month process,
Yeah.
but it did happen.
yes,
And it's something, I know I couldn't have gone there if I wasn't on that drug Zoloft, but I also don't want to undermine it and say, oh my God, that could never happen. That's a terrible thing, because I'm also very sex positive at the same time.
right.
So I do have friends that are still in the escorting world who choose to do that
Right.
because it's something they enjoy. They're not forced. And I never want to shame anybody, because shaming people can kill people. And I know that very well, because the world tried to shame me. And once I got healthy, I refused to feel shame from others or listen to other people's voices
Yeah.
telling me how I should feel.
Did your time as an escort, did that replace the excitement of running in front of 80,000 people in a stadium or in the Olympics?
It did, and you have to understand, so my mind was unhealthy at that time. I'm in a place where very delusional, and making the riskiest decisions. They're so risky. I'm out of control. I could do some things that could really kill me. And my brain doesn't see anything wrong with what I'm doing. Even though if the world knew, like my family, they would think, oh, she's trying to hurt us on purpose. I was never trying to hurt anybody. I was just fueling what my brain needed. And yes, at that time, this was better than any Olympics.
Right.
And better than any other high that I had experienced. And that's the one tragic thing with bipolar is the mania is so incredible that you don't want to exit it. And that's why when patients are given medication for bipolar, it takes away that manic state. And many people go off their medications because they want that mania. And now you're taking it away. And many people don't have coping mechanisms in their life set up for when that mania is taken away.
You're somebody people know. You're a well-known personality, and you're an escort in Vegas, and guys are meeting you. Weren't you concerned about people are going to find out? I've got my daughter Kylie, my husband Mark. If other people find out, and Mark knew, but he felt that. When I talked to Mark mentioned that I knew Suzy before all this. I knew the old Suzy, and I was just hopeful that old Suzy would come back.
Right. I think he was just hoping, okay, it's going to end tomorrow. She's
Right.
going to be done. She's going to snap out of this. But the more I got into it, there's no way I could get out. I was never going to get out on my own. It was going to be impossible. But yeah, and again, I always have to emphasize, you have to understand the drug, the Zoloft,
Yes.
was continuing to make me even more crazier. And the more I got into escorting, the more the highs were. There was no way I wanted to leave that. And so many people can't understand that. And I can't expect everybody, because it's hard to understand mental illness
Right.
unless you have lived with it, or you have a loved one who suffers from it. You know somebody, you're a psychiatrist, you're a psychologist. People love to just throw out the blame game. Oh, you use your bipolar as the excuse why you became an escort. And again, I heard that comment
Sure.
all the time. And my mission now is to educate. I don't have, I have regrets about the people that I hurt.
Right.
The experience has brought me to such a better place in my life and made me a stronger person. It has given me a voice. I don't take shit from anybody anymore, which is, whereas my whole life I listened to what everybody said. I was the most coachable person in the world. I never disagreed. And now I speak up for myself. And I've learned what life is all about. And I always like to emphasize it's about love. Life is about friends. Those two things to me are the most important things that have opened up my world, not how fast I ran a race. I mean, that was great. And my running has now given me the platform to speak out on mental illness, which I'm incredibly grateful for.
Were there points where you were suicidal?
Yes, many. And there were points where I was suicidal younger, even in college, where it was another layer I built up. I hid behind an eating disorder. That was another sign of my mental illness. The suicide attempts at a young age, those were huge signs, but I hid it so well from everybody. Nobody really knew. And when I was diagnosed bipolar, I was shocked. I'm like, no, that's not me. That was my brother. What are you talking about? I was in denial.
So December 20th, 2012, Smoking Gun comes out with their article, and everything goes crazy, right?
Right.
Looking at that now, if that had not happened, you might still be in that lifestyle.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Smoking Gun, so he's this tabloid reporter, and there was a client that had contacted him
To basically give you up.
Right, to ruin my life. And so the tabloid guy, his job is destroying people's lives. And what he really is doing is he could be killing people. he almost killed me, in meaning that when he outed me, I was suicidal after that
Sure.
happened. And there was a point where I almost jumped out of the car. I attempted to, and my husband slammed on the brakes, but I was very close to killing myself because of the shame and what he had done. I never want to glorify him in any way because I still believe what he does is wrong. He makes a living out of this. But at the same time, him outing me pulled me out and got me healthy. But how do you describe that when
Right.
I'm not a big fan of his, and I'm not going to glorify him. But.
So you had sponsorships of the Rock and Roll Marathon with Nike, with Disney. They took your name off the Big Ten Award. Obviously, the ramifications of all this were,
Were
for
huge.
somebody who was struggling psychologically anyways.
Right.
How have you come out the other end of this? And you're from being with you, from having you on the radio, from seeing how you interact with people, you just seem to be in a really good place now.
Yeah, and to go through something like that, it's like I feel like I can handle anything
Right.
that would be thrown at me. And I feel like for my daughter, who understands my story completely.
And how old is Kylie now?
She's 10 years old. She understands in a very 10-year-old appropriate way, but yet she still understands the sex component to it.
Sure.
Because I don't want to shield my daughter. I want her to be open and understanding and still have compassion for people that are in that industry. I think is very important to not shame anybody for the decisions or choices they make in their life.
Are you happy now?
I am happy now. Obviously, life is not perfect, and people always ask, so what's the secret to battling bipolar? How did you get over it? Well, first of all, you never get over it, and you always live with this, and I have bad days. I mean, just last week I had a bad day. It just kind of comes, but the great thing is my husband and my daughter are both incredibly educated on this illness, incredibly educated. So my daughter, when she sees me having an episode, it's easy for her to understand, or my husband may pull her aside and you can say, that is part of her illness. And it just helps to recognize that, yeah, this is really an illness. This is something we need to take serious and not just say it's some behavior problem and it's going to go away, but to accept it. And we need, as a community or everywhere, we need people to come together and embrace it more, because what we do is we shame behaviors. And my behaviors, okay, they are crazy, how I went from the sweetheart to the escort in Vegas, and I admit that, but the sexual component to bipolar is real. And if people don't understand that, that's okay. I'm here trying to give that message to educate. So maybe if you have no idea and you can't even grasp it, at least you'll hear it. And it's no excuse. It's just not talked about with the illness. And even psychiatrists and psychologists don't want to talk about it.
Have you heard from since you came out with the book and since you've been so open, have you heard from a lot of people who are dealing with bipolar, or they have relatives who are?
Oh my God, I've heard from a ton of people, and I think that's what makes telling my story easier, is that there's so many people that are living my story.
Yeah.
Not to the extent, well, actually a few that are escorts, but not to the extent of becoming an escort, but are living my exact story, where maybe their husband doesn't know what they're doing, but they're living it and they don't know what's wrong. And they read my book and they say, wow, I just scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist. I see too many similarities between myself and your story. And I've had a couple people say that they've read the book and that they were going to kill themselves. And they read the book and they didn't. Right there, okay, if I got 2 letters like that. I've saved 2 lives. Oh my God.
It's worth it.
My life that whole journey that I took, and the strength that it gave me, it was worth it. It was completely worth it. And I just believe everybody in our life, all of you have that shit that's going on, and that we kind of cover it up because maybe it is nobody's business. But we all have it. None of you are perfect, and that's okay. might just happen to be out there for the tabloid and everybody to hear. And that's okay too, because hopefully I can let people know that they're normal too with their problems, and not to be shamed by things that you have done. There was a reason you did what you did.
Yes.
And it's okay. And surround yourself with forgiving, positive, flawed people. I loved flawed people.
We all
Love you.
are.
I love you. I like people that are more open that they're flawed. You know, the ones that show that they're so perfect,
Yes.
they're probably even more flawed. I know, because that was me.
Love it.
Who
How
sh-
about a round of applause for Suzy Favor Hamilton? Any questions